Alright, how's it going, folks? Wits FL here again. I decided, after the review on the Flandre did pretty good, I don't know if I'm saying it wrong, did pretty good. I decided, I wanted to try something a little bit different than just replays. Maybe help out some players as well. So, excuse me, what I'm going to be doing here today is a new player or, maybe a tutorial on how to be better at World of Warships Legends. So this is the console version of the game. The PC version, it's just known as World of Warships. It's a different game. It's somewhat similar, but it's different enough that the tutorials may not be the same. With that said, I'd like to get right into it. This is going to be, again, entirely live. So this is a one take. I tried it once before, and I kind of didn't organize my thoughts too well, so I wanted to redo it and maybe make it a little bit more coherent. But the point of it is, you're not going to be able to you'll sit here and won't have to wonder how many times did it take this guy to get this game, or, whatever it may be, right? So, getting started here, I'd like to first go over the classes of ships. You may be aware of this by this point, or you may not. It depends on what point of the game you are watching this video at. So, when you get started, your port, if you've played no games at all, your port is probably going to look something like this. These are what is known as Tier 1 ships. Every one of these is a cruiser, and it's a bad cruiser. So, it's just kind of, without... They're doing this so they don't overload you with different classes. It's just you're taking a boat out and you're shooting things, right? That's what Tier 1 is. Not a whole lot of tutorial necessarily for that. It's really up to Tier 2 or Tier 3 and beyond that where you're going to start to get some differences. So you have four different classes of ships, and there's kind of subclasses of ships, if that makes sense. But for the most part, there's four main classes of ships. You have destroyers, which are, for all these nations, they're all up at the top. So that top row of ships is just destroyers. So this is like the wikis. You see there's little icons to the left of the wikis. There's a little triangle. That triangle signifies a destroyer. If we go to the Albany, that little ship icon with the line right through it, that signifies it's a cruiser. It's to the left of the white box. We go down, this is to the Wyoming. These are battleships. That signifies that those are battleships, that little double line. And then down at the bottom, these are aircraft carriers, and that little ship icon with the T in it, that signifies that it is an aircraft carrier. So those are the icons for you. But you have destroyers, these are cruisers, these are battleships, and then these are aircraft carriers. And if we go over up to here, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers, destroyer, cruiser, battleship, aircraft carrier, destroyer, cruiser, battleship, aircraft carrier, and so on, right? Not all ships have aircraft carriers, not all nations have aircraft carriers, not all nations have battleships, not all nations have cruisers. Like the Pan-Asian, that's pretty much entirely destroyers. There's one cruiser, and all the rest are destroyers. These guys have no destroyers. These are cruisers, these are battleships. So, other than premiums, there's a couple of premium Italian destroyers. So, that being said, each one of these ships plays a little bit different. You may know which one you're coming here for, you may know which one you want to play, or you may not. A general overview, destroyers are going to be a ship that probably has the most impact on the game than anything else. Because in this game, they are stealthy. So you're not going to be able to see them as you play. You may have experienced this. And if you haven't played any games, I recommend just taking it out, playing a couple of games, whatever happens, happens. And then, maybe you get to Tier 3. In fact, maybe you get up to Tier 3. Okay. And then you've kind of got a taste for certain things. And then at that point, you're like, okay, how do I do better? And maybe come back to this video at that point. But I recommend at least getting your feet in the water. You'll notice destroyers are stealthy. You're not going to see them too often unless they shoot you, and they can launch torpedoes at you. Now, torpedoes are devastating. They hurt a lot.
A lot of times you're not going to spot them until they're right in front of you. So you kind of have to know, based on, if you're playing against destroyers, you kind of have to know based on certain cues around about where they are. If you're spotted and you don't spot anything else, it's probably a destroyer. So that's to let you know, and then you can also look around at where certain islands are, you know, different cover, things like that, and kind of take a guess. You can also look on the mini-map for their last known location. It's a little grayed out box. That'll show you where they were last spotted. And you can kind of take a guess where they might be based on that. Now you also know, if you're spotted and nothing else spotted you, they have probably launched torpedoes at you. Now at low tier, most of the time they're just going to launch straight at where the box is showing them you're going. So if you make any kind of course corrections, they're probably going to miss those torpedoes. Higher tiers, they start to get better, and they'll spread them out a little bit, predict where you're going, you know, and maybe be a little more accurate. But at that point, you should also be better at knowing when they're coming and, you know, how to dodge them, right? So it kind of balances out. But these things are stealthy. You're not going to spot them too often, so when you do spot them, because of the impact they have, you want to shoot them. It doesn't matter if you're not going to get much damage off of them, shoot them. Because if you do not, it will come back to bite you. You'll end up, especially if you're in a battleship, you know, cruisers can handle destroyers a lot better than battleships can. If you are in a battleship and you let a destroyer get away because you were taking a shot at something and you wanted damage, you are going to regret it, I promise you. So shoot the destroyers. That is lesson number 1. When you get the opportunity, shoot them. Aside from that, cruisers. These guys are kind of a jack of all trades. You know, they can handle battleships somewhat. They can handle destroyers very well. They are a hard counter to destroyers. So if you are a destroyer, you should be very afraid of a cruiser, because their guns reload quickly, so they can damage you a lot. They're also agile, so they can dodge your torpedoes, and especially once you get up to high tiers, they'll have tools that can spot you, even when you're not expecting to be spotted. You'll get an experience for that around tier 5. It's known as radar, where they can light you up and spot you even if you're not spotted for 30 seconds if you're within a certain distance of the cruiser. So you'll get an experience for that once you get up to tier 5, tier 6, and so on. Anyway. Cruisers are a hard counter to destroyers. They, at least in the beginning, battleships are a hard counter to cruisers. If you're playing cruisers, you'll probably notice that you maybe get half your health chunked, or maybe you get all of your health taken away from a battleship. It depends. But they are a hard counter to battleships, or just cruisers. So you don't want to get into a fair gunfight with a battleship, because you will probably lose. In a cruiser, your goal is to take pot shots at battleships, make the fight as unfair as possible. Shoot the guy from behind an island if your team is spotting. That'll mean you're not spotted, and you can shoot him. He can't shoot you back. So that's going to give you a massive advantage. Or if you don't have any cover, or you need to be the one spotting him, you could do what we call kiting. That's basically sailing away from the battleship, shooting back at it, and then whenever they shoot you, you know, make some evasive maneuvers to dodge the shells. A lot of times they're going to miss you, or they'll hit you, but it won't be for a whole lot. So again, the whole goal is, don't make the fight fair, make it unfair. That's the only way you're going to win, for the most part. Battleships, these things are hard countered by destroyers because they have no tools to really spot them for the most part. So, you know, and they're slow, not maneuverable, so they're a lot more prone to taking torpedoes than cruisers or destroyers. These guys, they have big guns that do a lot of damage. So if you get a cruiser that's easy to shoot at, you can remove them in a single shot. You can also remove battleships in a single shot sometimes, if they do something wrong. These guys, their whole goal is to take the hits. You know, you've got a lot of hit points, you got great armor. Take the hits for your team and support your team. Support your destroyers in getting the caps. Support your cruisers in hunting destroyers. Don't rush right into the cap. You know, that's usually going to lead to your death. But support your team. And, you know, be the one to take shots at things that need to be shot at. But you'll also notice one thing you want to do in battleships, if you're getting half your health removed a lot or getting all your health removed a lot, there is something known as angling of armor. So let's take a look at this. This is a high tier ship. This is the Iowa. If you're coming to this game, you're probably very familiar with the Iowa class battleships. They're famous. They are the best the Americans ever made. So it's a great ship too. It's a fantastic ship. If you're just getting into battleships, it's not a bad first battleship. Not at all. So if we take a look here, this is the armor viewer. This is showing how thick certain armor is. You'll notice the bow of the ship, the front, it has 32 millimeters of armor, but it is not flat 32. It's a very, if you'll notice, if you're shooting right at that, you know, what's going to end up happening is that's a hard target to hit because it's at a very steep angle, so you'll just end up ricocheting shells because it is so thick. That's not the thickest armor on the ship, but it's thick enough to ricochet most shells. Now if we take a look here, instead, this is the center area. This torpedo protection, the green area, that's light armor, but it is covering up some thick armor here. That's very thick armor. However, it is, well, I guess part of it is not that thick. Anyway, point I'm making, if you go and you show a flat angle right here, right? Let's say if you shoot something, right, and it's flat, it's going to penetrate. You're going to get right through, you know, you're shooting a flat target, it's going to have a lot easier time penetrating. Whereas if you're shooting something here, you know, if something's coming at you with force, it's going to have a harder time hitting this. What's going to end up happening is it's probably going to ricochet, or it won't go all the way through because of the angle it's coming in at. So what you want to do in a battleship is not go flat broadside. Don't show this angle to the enemy. If you show this angle, you will be removed. You'll get one shot, you'll get half your health removed, something like that. You want to angle at least here. This is probably about how far you want to angle. You want the enemy team to see something like this maybe. Don't show them this. If you show them this, this is why you're getting removed, more than anything. So show them an angle like this. They will have a lot harder time getting damage off of you. At higher tiers, you can just straight up show them this angle. They'll have a very hard time getting damage off of you. But that's just kind of, when you're first getting into it, this is going to be a great tool. It's known as bow tanking. There's very few ships that can damage you at this angle, other than ships with insanely big guns. So that's just the main points of it, right? So don't show flat broadside. In cruisers, you'll also notice you may have gotten removed a couple of times. You may, maybe you got half your health taken away by battleships or even sometimes cruisers. Cruisers, the idea is pretty much the same. You know, show them this angle instead of this angle. Whereas if you're fighting a battleship, you're going to have a lot harder time. This is maybe a bad ship to show an example of because this thing is very prone to getting removed. But, so with this cruiser, again, your goal is really to dodge shells. You don't want to be taking the hits at all. So you want to make it as hard as possible to hit you. So that means staying at a further away range, or, you know, staying behind an island. Don't take fair shots at battleships. This right here is your Citadel Armor. So in a cruiser, because you're much more lightly armored, you're able to be penetrated a lot easier by battleships. Let's go with the Baltimore. This is maybe a better example here. This is a heavy cruiser. So with this heavy cruiser, you have some pretty decent armor. This 27mm bow means you can actually bow tank like a battleship can with certain ships you come across. If you get something with 16-inch guns like an Iowa, you cannot do that. But if you get 15-inch guns like a Richelieu or a Vanguard or a Bismarck, you can bow tank them, you can bounce their shells. So you want to, first priority, dodge the shells. Don't take those shells in the first place. That is your best tool as a cruiser. 2, as a heavy cruiser, you have the ability to, in some cases, angle your armor. So you'll notice this is what is known as the Citadel, right here, the orange part that I'm showing. This is the most heavily armored part of the ship. This is also where they hit if they're doing, you know, one-shotting you. This is where they're hitting you. So you don't want to show a flat broadside. If you show an angle, you might be able to bounce some of those shells, potentially. Really depends, right? But it is possible. But if you have, this is a ship that if you see 16-inch guns, you don't want to get close to it because they can hurt you at any angle. Doesn't matter what angle you present. So your goal is to take shots from behind islands, avoid them. This is a light cruiser here. So this is the Cleveland. This is the light cruiser. You'll notice instead of a 27mm bow, it gets 25. Instead of the casemate being 27, it's also 25. So, and then also the thickest part of the armor down here, also a little bit thinner. So, with this, light cruisers, especially at higher tiers, believe it or not, your best friend is what is known as overpens. So if a battleship shoots you at a flat angle, that means they're going to have the easiest time penetrating you, right? This is not what you want to do in a battleship. In a light cruiser, if a big gun battleship shoots at you at this angle, they're probably going to overpen you. Instead of the shells getting into your ship and exploding, they'll just go right through without exploding, which means you get a lot less damage. So again, first tool, dodge the shells. In a light cruiser, if you're up against the battleship, especially at close range, show them as flat an angle as possible and pray for overpens. If you angle, that's when the shells might start to get in and actually penetrate and remove you. Against heavy cruisers though, again, you want to be angling armor. You do not want to show a flat broadside because cruisers have smaller guns, they're less likely to overpen you. Little complicated, I know, but you'll get more of a taste for it as you go on. You'll kind of start to see what I mean. For a general idea, don't go flat broadside. That is how you die. Show an angle in most things. Or dodge shells if you're in a cruiser, better yet. In a destroyer, don't get into gunfights with cruisers. You'll probably lose. You want to stay unspotted, you want to hunt down destroyers, you want to take caps, and you want to torpedo things without getting spotted. Or you also in a destroyer get a smoke screen for the most of them anyway. That allows you to sit in that smoke screen and you can take shots at things without getting spotted. If you're not spotted, they'll have a very hard time pinpointing where you are to actually shoot back at you. So it's basically free damage. Cruisers can also sit in smoke screens if a destroyer sets one for them, or if they have one, like the Edinburgh here. The Edinburgh gets a smoke screen. So you can sit in that and just take free shots at things. Those are the general ideas behind the three classes, right? Now I'm going to actually show you some gameplay here in Tier 4. Kind of give you an idea of what you should be doing here. I have a couple of ships that I actually need to work on at Tier 4. This Emile Bertin is one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and take out the Emile Bertin. Now, commanders, I'm trying to think, I don't know that I went over that. You have commanders for different ship types. If you look on the top right corner, you see for Philip Oboyenu, the top right corner, there's that little white area and that triangle destroyer icon that we talked about earlier. That is signifying that this is a destroyer commander. His skills that he has here, that you get to pick from, which give you certain buffs, like this is less detectability range, this is more torpedo reload time, so they reload quicker. This is faster destroyer, so his skills apply best to destroyers. You don't really want to run him on anything else for the most part. This guy right here, that icon, the cruiser icon, that's signifying he is a cruiser commander. These skills apply best to a cruiser, so don't necessarily run him on battleship or destroyer. This guy right here, Robert Jaguar, he is a battleship commander. That icon on the top right signifies his skills are best applied to a battleship. Each commander for each nation has different skills. So you see there's normally 2 of each kind of commander, 2 destroyer commanders, 2 cruiser commanders, and 2 battleship commanders. There's normally 2 different kinds of builds for battleships. There's what's known as the tank build. That's this guy. Allows you to get more heals, take damage better,
get caught on fire less, and the dispersion build, which is basically more accurate guns. Cruisers, you have the damage build, which gives you more range, more damage skills, and the agility build, which allows you to dodge shells better. So, two distinct kinds of builds. Then destroyers, you have the gunboat build, and then the torpedo build. So this is the gunboat, this is torpedo. Gunboat is obviously going to mean you have better guns. You're more likely to beat other destroyers in a gunfight. Torpedo means you're going to have better speed or better torpedo reload, so you're going to be able to torpedo battleships better. So you kind of get a choice there, which is nice. In this case, I am going to be running the damage and range build on this French cruiser. So let's go ahead and take it out. And this is, like I said, this is live. This is a one-take game. Whatever happens here, happens. So you're not sitting here wondering how long did it take me to get this game. Nothing like that. I'm going for it, and you'll get to see what I can do here. Now for cruisers in particular, perhaps even more so than battleships or destroyers, it'll be a lot harder to do well in a cruiser in lower tiers, like through tier 6, than battleships or destroyers. When you get to tier 6 in a cruiser, somewhat tier 5 as well, cruisers get a lot easier because you get access to more modifications, in particular a concealment mod which makes you a lot more stealthy, or a rudder shift mod which makes you a lot more agile. I usually prefer the rudder shift mod that makes you even more agile. So keep that in mind. Cruisers will get easier as time goes on. Battleships will get harder as time goes on, and destroyers pretty much stay the same. So what I'm going to do here, I know this map, so I know these guys spawn here, and I also have played it enough to know that they're probably going to go this way and come out right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get behind this island right here. I have another cruiser, which he has a smoke screen. It's just us two on this flank. Actually, looking at it, there's no destroyers in this game. There's only a battleship and there is a carrier. Now, I have confidence in my ability to take other cruisers, especially up close, so I don't have too much of a problem with going in. But in most cases, it's going to be a lot more battleships and cruisers, destroyers, so you don't want to rush right into a cap. You want to maybe sit behind an island like this and spam fires. Spam HE, AP, something at him, right? That was HE that I just shot at this guy. It's best against lightly armored targets. It catches them on fire, which does damage over time. I just switched to armor piercing. You can see down the top, the bottom right. This is better for a flat broadside target, light and heavily armored targets like cruisers or battleships. Let's see what we can do for this guy. This is a pretty bad angle. If I press the Y button, I don't know what the equivalent is on PS4. That'll basically allow me to launch my torpedoes. And I just launched torpedoes just because I want the waters to be dangerous to this guy. Now you can see there's a lot of targets out here. So, not preferable. You don't want to be surrounded by this many targets. This guy is flat broadside, so he's a better shot for me. I'm taking that shot with armor piercing, and we smack him pretty good. Now I'm turning away. There's torpedoes here. We're going to launch more torpedoes just to make the waters dangerous for that guy. Let's see here. So, this is essentially what kiting is. Normally you're doing it at a much higher range. This guy's flat broadside. I'm going to pop one of my consumables here, the sonar. That's going to tell me where the torpedoes are a lot better. You can see them right there. So I can avoid them a lot better. Now we are pretty heavily overloaded here. So we've got a significant disadvantage. I'm shooting at the waterline, just above it, hoping to penetrate the Citadel on this guy with armor piercing. Now unfortunately I'm not doing too well here. For some reason. Our rudder got knocked out, which is not preferable. Means I can't control where I'm steering. I'm going to damage con that. Go ahead and launch these torpedoes. I'm pretty much dead, but I'm hoping to catch him. And I think I might. Yep. I caught him with one. We got pretty well overloaded on this side, so in this case, what I should have done is turned around and started kiting away, just so I wasn't getting shot at by that many things. Because you're not going to win that in a fair gunfight, again. There's really no way of predicting that. In that scenario, the best thing to do is, again, kite away, try and survive for as long as possible, annoy them for as long as possible, prevent them from getting it through, capturing things, right? And hoping that the team that, since there's 6 of them over here, there should in theory be 6 of our guys over here and 3 of their enemy team. So they're in the same predicament over there that we were over here. Overloaded at a huge disadvantage, they're probably going to lose. If your team is smart, they will win, and they will go around and help you out. So your goal is just hold the flank for as long as possible. We didn't do a great job of that. But that's the idea, right? Let's now show you a battleship at tier 4. Show you what to do in a battleship. Now this is the Italian battleship. This is the Jaguar. It's a tier 4 Italian battleship. It's pretty new. Just recently added. So we're on Trident. I usually play battleships most, but I'm pretty solid at most things, and I play a bit of everything. So yeah, it's kind of a good mix, right? Here we are, tier 4. I hate this game mode. Mostly battleships this match. A couple of destroyers and 1 cruiser. So, and they also have an aircraft carrier. So what I'm going to do here in this scenario is I'm going to present an angle the armor like I talked about earlier to the enemy. Don't go flat broadside. Just angle your armor as best you can. So there's 3 spawns, right? And normally the enemy is spawning across from each of our teams. So there's 3 enemies over here, 2 enemies across from us, 3 enemies over here, and the aircraft carrier could be on this side or on this side. So I am bow tanking these guys, giving these guys a small target so they can't really shoot me from across the map too effectively. Angled against these guys, so they're not going to get crazy damage if they shoot me. And then these guys can't shoot me because of the mountain. If they come around, they'll have my broadside, but at that point I will reassess my strategy. So, and it's on our guys over here to not let them get that far. You see, there's the guy that spawned across from us. He's decided to run to his teammates. That is a bad strategy. Do not do that. Let me show you why. Because you end up going flat broadside, which gives me the opportunity to do this. I don't know if that's going to be a great salvo or not, but yeah, nothing great. This ship has relatively small guns for a battleship, but he did get very fortunate. That was also partially my aim. So, hold your flank as best you can. I see a torpedo out there. I know there's a destroyer in the middle somewhere. That guy's angled to us. That guy's also starting to angle to us. That guy's flat broadside. Slightly angled. There's the carrier. Looks like torpedoes heading our way. So, I'm gonna turn to try and avoid them. Let's hope we lob the island. We did a little bit, not enough, but Yep.
Avvistata corazzata nemica.
Now I'm giving a pretty juicy angle to these guys, which I don't want to be doing. There's a destroyer out there, so I'm going to shoot that destroyer. Because if I don't, our destroyer will lose the gunfight, so I need to help him out. I don't want to be running, you know, so I don't... The only reason I'm showing this angle is so I can get my guns off on this destroyer, and I also had to avoid torpedoes. I don't want to run away to the back. That's how you lose. So don't do that. Just trying to get shots off on this destroyer. Those fell short. Not what I want to see. Now you can see I'm angling to this battleship, so he's having a harder time getting damage off of me. Yeah, that didn't go well for that destroyer. Still, I need to be shooting this guy, even if he's far away. Hopefully we catch him one of these times. Shooting HE at the destroyer because HE is going to deal better damage than AP. Just barely undershot him. Destroyers, when they're further away, can be harder to find. But somebody has to do something, or they're going to take out our aircraft carrier, which is not good. Taking another shot here. Looks a little better. Unfortunately, the dispersion is just, it's hard to hit destroyers at this kind of range. The only reason I'm doing it is just to kind of show you guys what you should be doing. I'm trying my hardest to help this carrier. But this carrier isn't really helping himself either. He should be sending his planes. I no longer have the ability to hit the destroyer. I can see because of that angle. Take a quick shot at the battleship. Now I need to refocus back to the cap. So, not going well for this flank over here. You don't want to lose your side, because once, see now this entire flank for us has collapsed. Not only have they taken out our carrier, they have also have nothing else to shoot at now. So now they have free range to come over and shoot at us. So don't lose your side, don't abandon your side. Otherwise, see, if I was ignoring this side, I'd be completely flat broadside. Which, as we talked about before, is how you die in this game. If you go flat broadside, you get blapped. And that's the end of your story. So don't do that, right? Don't lose your side, don't abandon your side, because then the enemy can get your teammates flat broadsides. Again, angled. So because I'm angled, he's having a much harder time getting damage off of me. If it was flat broadside, it would not be a fun game for me. Now, the Italian battleships are not the best battleships in the game. I just saw that destroyer for a second. If I see him again, I'm going to shoot him. Take that shot. There he is.
Attenzione, segnalo la posizione del bersaglio.
Trying to stay aware of what's happening in front of me too. Now the one advantage we have here, this is definitely a losing game for us at this point, but the one advantage we have is we have the cap. So that means we're getting passive points as a result, which means if we don't all die and they don't capture this base, we can still win this. Not likely, but it is possible. It's not likely since they have destroyers left. But we definitely need to help out and take out what we can. which means at this point in time, support this flank over here.
Allarme incendio.
See, now there's only 2 of us left.
It's unfortunate. It's not a good situation to be in. Our team kind of fell apart for the most part. But that doesn't mean give up. Fight till the end. If we can hold this base, capturing the outer zone, probably the carrier if I had to guess. Something over there. There's the Mutsuki. Want to be shooting that guy. I didn't have a great shot on it. So the other problem we're experiencing now is no intelligence data. We cannot see things to shoot at them. Intelligence is key to winning games, which is why part of why destroyers are that important. The only thing we can see here is this Britannia. So he's the only thing we can really shoot at. I'm gonna load HE because I know there's a destroyer right there. And I'm also going to turn in just so that way he cannot get us, right? Or he has a harder time getting us, rather. So rushing a smoke screen in a battleship, normally not what you want to do, because it means you're getting close to a destroyer that can torpedo you, like this. So I want to cut in. However, I do know the Mutsuki only has 6 torpedoes, and they don't reload all that quick. So if I get in quick and spot him, I can shoot him without him being able to shoot me. Now, there's the Ishislav here. It's another destroyer. The main threat to us at this point are destroyers. If we can remove these guys, we have a chance. So, shoot the destroyers. I'm gonna take that shot. We hit him pretty good for a destroyer. So, if our teammate helps us out and hits this guy, I do need to be careful because we're getting around the point where that other destroyer in front of us could start to get reloaded. But I do need to take this guy out. Alright. There's the Mutsuki. Yeah, he's reloaded. Which is not good. This could mean our death. Probably is going to mean our death. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I had an opportunity to take out a destroyer. I had to do it. I wish our other guy could have shot the destroyer instead of the battleship. I wouldn't have had to do that. But that's what it is, you know. At high tier, teammates normally start to get a little bit smarter, but low tier just is not the case. So shoot the destroyers. Don't abandon your flank. And don't lose your flank if you can help it, because that's going to be the way that your team loses. So I did cruisers, I did battleships. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a destroyer. For a destroyer here, I'm trying to think. I want one that I'm familiar with, so that way I don't do bad. The Jaguar is pretty solid. Yeah, I'll do the Jaguar. This is a little, you know what, no, because it doesn't have a smoke screen, and you guys are going to need to know what to do with the smoke screen. So I'm going to do instead let's see here. I'm going to do the, I might do this one. No, I'm going to do the Japanese one. That's what a lot of you guys are going to end up playing, I think, just because these are the torpedo boats. So these are the ones that are going to have the most average damage with torpedoes. So these are going to be the best ones for torpedoing battleships. But they're you have a lot harder time beating other destroyers with these. So there is a trade-off. You don't have great guns, you don't have a lot of hit points, you just have torpedoes and concealment. So
And you know, torpedoes are not everything. Damage is not everything. Because if you, as a destroyer, if you have the ability to do all this crazy damage to a battleship, that's great. You know, you can wreck battleships, right? But if you lose your gunfights to other destroyers, you know, you're not going to be able to do that, for one. And for two, if there's no other destroyers, if there's no destroyers, no carriers, nothing like that, they have no ability of spotting you. So it doesn't matter how much damage or how many torpedoes you have free range to just torp them the whole entire game without any repercussions. So it's important to be able to win other fights with destroyers. Now, I am going to go ahead and just send out some torpedoes here, just in case. At low tier, torpedoes reload pretty quickly. This is about a minute. That's pretty average for higher tiers, but for the most part, I like to do this just so that way, if I know my torpedo range, that is, which in this case it's 8 kilometers. That's pretty solid. So it just makes the waters dangerous just in case there's a destroyer out there that runs into one, you know. More often than not, you won't have a need for torpedoes for another minute, for about a minute into the match. So this is just what I like to do. You don't have to do that, and as a new player it may not be something you want to do, but it is an option. So we can see a carrier out here. If I pull up the emote wheel and press A, that disengages AA, because your AA shoots before the carrier spots you. And if the AA is shooting at it, they have a good idea of where to look for you. Now here we have a Farragut. So we're going to want to help out this Mutsuki. Now you notice, even for a destroyer, my torpedoes are starting to get reloaded, even before we've spotted another destroyer. So by the time you spot another battleship or cruiser, it's even more likely that they'll be reloaded by that point. Now Farragut, I know, can beat me in a gunfight, but there are 2 of us here. 2 of us with torpedoes. So we can both go in there and torp him, and if there's 2 of us, we might be able to outmatch him, just because it's 2 to 1. So I want to push that advantage. And I don't want to let this guy go off on his own and die. That's the more important thing. Support your teammates, even if they're idiots. But don't support them if they're abandoning caps. So our guy launched torpedoes at him. I'm going to cut in, because I know torpedoes are coming. And I just dodged torpedoes. Now this guy is going to beach. He dev struck our destroyer. But I'm going to do the same to him. But that's our destroyer's fault for doing that. So even though we don't have great guns with this destroyer, and we're at a disadvantage with beating that was an American destroyer. Those are pretty solid destroyer hunters. You know, we beat him because we launched torpedoes at him, so we have that advantage at least. But that's on him being a below average player. No insults intended in that. It's just he's probably a newer player is maybe a better way of putting that. So now, I don't want to get spotted by the carrier, because even though battleships have a disadvantage and don't shoot that fast, they can still hurt you. So I don't want to get shot. Now that I've taken out the destroyer, there is another one over here somewhere. I pretty well have free range to just kind of go off and torp these guys at this point. So I'm going to launch torpedoes there and there. Now normally you're going to have 3 racks of torpedoes or more torpedoes, so you can kind of spread them out a little bit better. But this is low tier, so... Excuse me. This is low tier. Most of the time people are sailing in a straight line, so you can kind of go right off of that without any repercussions. I don't know if those are going to hit or not. I might have undershot him. I accounted for a slight change in decrease in speed or turn. Yeah, and he's sped up from the looks of it, so... Which is unfortunate. Happens. There's a Farragut way out there. So... my thing here is... I can torpedo this battleship, right? And my main goal as a destroyer is to play the objective. I want to get into that base and capture that base. These guys are somewhat in my way from doing that. So, to an extent, I have to take these guys out. But I might be able to sneak right by him. I'm gonna go ahead and launch those just in case. But the thing is, I don't even have to torpedo these guys. I can just go right into that base, start getting into it, and denying them points. Now that destroyer way out there, he's getting into our base. Our guys need to shoot him. Because if they don't, he can win that game for them by getting into the base and capturing it. But for right now, best thing I can do, rather than these guys are doing what's called kiting, you know, running away basically and shooting back at people. Not a great strategy unless you're in a cruiser and you're like soloing other battleships, right? But in battleships, you don't want to be doing this unless you're severely outnumbered. Because this allows me to just kind of sneak right by you. As long as this carrier doesn't spot me, and he spotted me. I'm going to go ahead and engage AA. I'm going to smoke up. So I drop spot. I'll launch some torpedoes at this guy. Alright. Planes are gone, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of this smoke screen. I don't want to just sit here in that smoke screen, because especially at high tiers, people will just launch torpedoes into your smoke screen hoping to get you. And it works. That's a good thing to do. If you see a smoke screen, launch some torpedoes at it. If you have torpedoes that can hit it. More often than not, you'll sneak up and hit a destroyer. I wondered where those were. So that tells me there's a destroyer close by. Now you'll notice this little ghostly icon on my screen. It's kind of off to the right now. Now it's off to the left. That is a skill that this destroyer commander I'm running has. Most destroyer commanders are going to have this skill. Basically what it's doing is pointing to the direction of the nearest closest ship. It is a temple. It's a staple point for destroyers. You want to have that skill. There's an option to switch it for better torp reload. Do not do it, because this is telling me right now, nearest thing to me is dead ahead. Now it's probably around that mountain if I had to guess. But I do know that he is closer than 8.2 kilometers because this is the closest thing that I can see. And if he's not the closest thing, that means there's something closer than 8.2 kilometers. If it's not spotted, it's probably a destroyer. Especially since there's only 2 battleships left out here, and the rest are all destroyers. So, there is a destroyer out there, is what to take from that. So, really need to get into this cap, start denying them points, which is what I'm going to do. I'm not chasing these guys, I'm not trying to get crazy damage off of them. There is the destroyer. I'm going to launch some torpedoes at him. Oh no, he's going to beach. Okay. So no, I'm not going to do that yet. I have nothing I can really get into range for at the moment. Like I said, you don't always have to do damage to win games, and this is a winning play right here. This is going to deny them points, even if I don't capture this. This is going to deny them points. You'll notice up at the top, we're constantly generating points from the base. As long as I'm in here, it is not generating points for them. So we're getting a more and more points advantage the longer I just sit here. If I capture it, we win instantly. So even though I'm not doing any damage here, I can be the one ship to win the game for us. Now these guys, they're kind of in a situation where the only winning move for them is to not play, because they don't have any real chance of spotting me, and I'm a destroyer, so I can just torpedo them. Who knows if that's going to actually have the range to hit him or not, but I'm just doing it anyway.
Probably not. Yeah, if they rush in here, they're going to get torpedoed. They're going to die. If they don't, they're going to lose because I'm going to capture the base. So again, they're in a situation where the only winning move is to not play. Now I can potentially screw up and lose this for us, but for the most part, I have every advantage in the world here. You see in the top left corner, I'm going to go ahead and disengage that so he has no idea where I'm at. He may take a torp. Yep, got him with 2 torpedoes. So, yeah. He's afraid, you know. He knows that he can't really rush me, but he also knows that if he doesn't, he's going to lose. So, see, what I was saying is in the top left corner up here, you see my detectability range? That is your standard detectability if you do not shoot, if there's no external factors like planes or radar or anything like that locating you. So these guys, you notice, closest one is 7.3. If I open this, that'll tell me where he's going to be at in 30 seconds. So it'll take him 30 seconds to arrive close enough to spot me. And I'm faster than him, so I can outrun him. He's starting to get a little close, but he's probably going to take a torpedo here. Potentially. I don't know, he might dodge him. So now at this point, I'm going to start to get back. Because I've done enough, I don't have to just capture the base. At this point, we are leading them 2-1 on points. Right? So even if I don't capture this base, this is a 1 game as long as one of us lives. Yeah, you kind of see, you know, what it's like from a destroyer player's perspective. We're just little sharks that can just, you know, spot them and launch torpedoes at them, and they can't do a thing. There are 3 of us around them. There's this guy out here, there's me, and there's him, and they can't see any of us. There's nothing they can really do to spot us either, which is why you want to shoot the destroyers before it gets to this point, because once it gets to this point, you're pretty well screwed. And there goes the first one. This guy's probably dead too. I think we're gonna get him with some. Yep, 2. There goes half his health. So playing the objectives, 1, it may or may not lead to damage. You know, it might just lead to a win. But if they also recognize they have to do something about it, so you're gonna force them to come to you by playing the objective, which can lead to damage. You know, we didn't have, like, any damage. We had 1 dev strike on a destroyer, right? Where we torpedoed him. Aside from that, we had nothing. But because we forced these guys to come back to us, you know, now, here we are just getting to torpedo these guys. Free range. And you definitely want to pay attention to your detectability. I know it's 5.3. You want to make sure that you don't get spotted, because if you get spotted, there goes your advantage. Such as that guy. He got spotted, and he got punished for it. There goes another torpedo, and I believe that's also going to lead to him flooding. I have not had a great chance to show it off yet, but damage control, you know, you get damage over time. If their damage control is not reset yet, you'll just constantly be farming damage off of them. So, it's one thing to think about. But here we go. So, 58,000 damage, 6 torpedo hits, 5 floods, a kill, and a devastating strike on the destroyer. We topped out the leaderboard. Pretty solid stuff. That's how you play a destroyer. Again, most destroyers you're going to be at a huge disadvantage with. I would have rather been in any other destroyer than this one to fight that other destroyer. It was purely luck more than anything that I ended up torpedoing him because he ran into the island. It is viable to torpedo other battleships, but your first option should be beating them in a gunfight. This particular destroyer only has 2 guns. There's the one in the back, one in the front. Gets next to no hit points either. It is
one-trick pony if there ever was one. You're torpedoing things, or that's it, you know? So, you definitely want to be able to win those gunfights, otherwise you're at a huge disadvantage. I just kind of got lucky that time. But you can kind of see where beating other destroyers comes in handy. So I gave you guys a taste of, you know, the 3 different classes at low tier. I'm going to get more into it, maybe specialized videos on each one, you know, at higher tiers, and give you a taste on what that's like. Maybe show you which kind of lines to go for, things of that nature. But I hope that this video was informative. Hopefully it helped you out some. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Take care.